All aboard your tech and games caboose. We have the 1660 Ti, the GTX, launching today, available now. And we have some 1650 rumors and an 1180 also rumor. And then Vega 6056 looks like it's getting price slashes, and there is some surprise news at the end of this video. So let's jump into the 1660 Ti. This is based on the Turing GPU, the 116, I believe. But we'll go over that in a second. And there's also new drivers out for Anthem, and as well as some optimization for some ray tracing and DLSS for Metro Exodus. We'll go over that a little bit at the later as well. And let's talk about specs. So the GTX 1660 Ti, it has 1536 CUDA cores, so a little less than the 2060 and a little more than the 1060. So ROP is 48, and the boost clock is similar to the 1060, but it has the highest boost clock, sorry, the core base clock, but it has the 1770 megahertz boost clock, so the highest there. 12 gigabytes per second memory, all 192-bit bus comparisons. They're all 6 gigabytes of VRAM and 120 watts, so a little less power consumption, and no RTX ops, so no ray tracing on this GTX card. It is not a ray tracing card like the RTX 2060 is. And then it is the Turing 116 GPU, so it is a little smaller than the 106 and then larger than the GTX 1060's GPU 106. So that is the specs, and the price is $279 versus RTX's $350 price point. So let's talk about some of the actual benchmarks from YouTubers. So Hardware Unbox and a few of the others, they all shared Shadow of the Tomb Raider as one of the game comparisons. So we'll talk specifically about that game a little bit, their benchmarks. Paul also did some. Hardware Unbox had a lot of game reviews, like over 10 games. Paul did some synthetic and some game reviews. And Jay's 2 cents had actually 3 different 1660 Ti cards, and he tested some games. But let's look at the little spreadsheet and we're doing some comparisons for. So this is the GTX 1060 on the left, the 1660 Ti in the middle, the main number we're going to be looking at, and then the RTX 2060 to the right. So at 1080p Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we have Hardware Unbox and Paul both had the MSI Gaming X card, and just asterisks that the 2060 and 1060 are mostly Founders cards. There were some other differences. I think one was maybe an EVGA card. But for the MSI version, the Gaming X, they had a 1080p 87 and 83 FPS, so a good almost 33 FPS gain over the 1060, and then about a 9 to 11 FPS lower than the 2060, the RTX. So pretty good performance numbers at 1080p. You're going to get way over 60. And then we have at 1440p, it's just shy of 60 FPS, the MSI Gaming X. So you will probably want to be looking at the RTX 2060 or something a little more powerful if you have a 1440p monitor and you want to go above 60 FPS and try to stick at that 60 FPS. You're looking at like a RTX 2070 or maybe a GTX 1080, something along those lines. And at Jay's 2 cents, he had 3 different cards, 2 Asus cards, and that was between 80 and 77 FPS. And then the EVGA SC had a 77 as well. So those are some different variations. I think one might have been a 3-fan card, one was 2, and I think the MSI Gaming was possibly 1 fan. No, that's a 2-fan card. So there's a bunch of different variations you can check out there. And next up, we have some overclocking comparisons from Gamers Nexus. He did quite a few benchmarks, and he did some overclocking as well. He had about a 5% FPS gain. He did 175 on the memory, on the core clock, and then a 1120 on the memory clock. And that got about a couple FPS. Let's check out the charts. So at base, this was the EVGA XC card. This is a 1-fan card. I'm pretty positive on that one. And he got 83 FPS and then overclocked 88 FPS. So a 5 FPS gain, so around a 5% gain, and then 57 to 60 FPS at 1440p. So just hitting that 60 FPS, but not quite. You'll still get some drops below that. So you'll probably need like an Nvidia G-Sync monitor if you're looking at this card. which would be expensive. So also we get to see some actual prices. Hardware Unboxed gets a cool little price performance ratio graph. We'll check that out. Pretty good stuff. Pretty long reviews, but well worth watching it if you're going to buy one of these cards. So we have the 1660 Ti at $280, $279, but we're not debating that. So price performance, we're getting the third best card at $2.69 per FPS, it looks like. So the only better actual value is the RX 580 and 570, but then you're going to drop down pretty low FPS there. And then the 2060 for comparison is a little bit more expensive per FPS, but you're going to be able to hit a little bit above 60 FPS in certain games to get a more consistent experience. And plus you'll be able to try out ray tracing. You won't get to super great experience there, but you'll also be able to get DLSS, which again is getting some improvements today through the drivers, so which were a little bit blurry before and people were kind of hating on because it wasn't that great at the first Metro experience for that. So if you're looking at a 1660 Ti card, you're going to be looking at $280 on Amazon for the single fan variation. Asus has some dual fans pushing $300. There's a couple dual fans at around $290 from Gigabyte and MSI 309, MSI 300, and then also on Newegg they're around $280 for some of the MSI cards, and the Gaming X 1660 Ti is $309. So I believe that was the one that Hardware Unboxed and Paul got their hands on. So not quite $280. You'll probably want to be looking at some of the less expensive if you're trying to get that price to performance ratio down. So there is that to watch out for. And also you may not want to jump the gun just at release, because there are rumors of the 1650, and this is from confirmed by Video Cards. We don't have the actual source, I believe, but this is looking like, I want to say March was the date, late March, so we may still hold true. So you might want to wait just a couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, until we actually get news on this, and then you can decide from there basically. And then there's also some other rumors for GTX 1180. So this is a flagship without ray tracing, so we could see this coming soon. I don't think there's any actual specific date on this, but this was spotted in the HP documentation. So is NVIDIA preparing a non-RTX flagship? We won't know until they actually officially launch it, but this is pretty interesting find from HP documents. So we may see a flagship from NVIDIA that doesn't have ray tracing, and that could be way less expensive than the RTX cards. So it could get pretty interesting. And lastly, we talked about the drivers a little bit. So Metro Exodus has a optimization fixes for DLSS, which was a little bit blurry in the first implementation, and it looks like some RTX fixes as well. So let's jump over to, so here is the DLSS was talked about pretty bad. It was blurry on some of the sharp edges, and in Metro Exodus there was a lot of picture comparisons and it wasn't doing that great. So DLSS is apparently got a optimization fix, and this is from Joker Production, talks a little bit about it, gives us a 6-minute video detailing DLSS off. So this is like AA, anti-aliasing, so you get a sharp around the edges and not really any blur. And this is the pre-patch. This is what everyone was complaining about. It just seemed blurry. The dots aren't very dark or crisp. It's blurry around the edges. And then post-patch, we actually get some of the blurriness removed. So some better optimization here. And I believe he might talk about some of the actual FPS if it's getting a little bit less FPS hit. But DLSS needs a little bit time to learn apparently. And that was kind of mentioned when DLSS was coming out. It will improve over time, and it looks like they're doing some of that, hopefully. So DLSS could be an actual good feature again, like it was supposed to be, but still only enabled on a select few games like Battlefield. It just got on, Metro Exodus, and a couple games coming in the future is Anthem. Not quite at launch, but they did say they were working on that. So pretty interesting for DLSS. And one more here's kind of a deal for today. The RX Vega 56 is getting a price drop around $279 $79 to compete with the 1660 Ti that launched today. So if you were looking at an AMD card for some comparison numbers, this is the Vega 56. Let's check out an actual number. Back at 333, I think they did some comparisons. So the RX Vega 56 is pretty much in line with the 1660 Ti. You'll have to check out the specific game you're looking at to get a comparison. But if you're looking for AMD card, then that is around the same price with the price slash. So check out Amazon or Newegg for the best deal you can get on that. So graphics cards are heating up pretty good. You'd have to argue. And the surprise news at the end was Will Smith hosts meme review. So this is pretty interesting for YouTubers and Pewdiepie, and apparently it's not Will Smith, it's Elon Musk. And this is a whole 20-minute video. He reviews memes, Pewdiepie obviously, and we get some cool additions, not just Elon Musk, Justin Roiland, and Elon Musk. And he does a small little 5-6 minute segment where he actually reviews a meme instead of PewDiePie. So pretty cool crossover from the tech world and rockets and Tesla into YouTube, where we're hosting right now every day at 1 p.m. Pacific. And he reviews some memes, and one of them he actually laughs at a dead dolphin for about a whole minute straight. So you can expect some negative press from Elon Musk crossover with Felix PewDiePie. So some of the memes are funny, some of them are kind of, I'm confused on why I was laughing about a dead dolphin, but that's beside the point. You probably want to check it out. Links to all the YouTube reviews and this meme review in the description below. With that, we have Mark saying, did you hear Elon wants to buy Facebook and delete it? I'm pretty sure that's not news. Either way, he could probably joke about that in Twitter, but we'll see if he buys it. I doubt it. But we'll have another episode tomorrow at 1 p.m. Pacific with some more tech and some game news we kind of missed today. But with that, we'll be signing out. Pew, 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 pew.